Okay, we're back over here in Rabbi Tatz and his work on Bechira, free will, and he's talking about how is it possible that a person gets stuck in a quandary of Bechira, free will, when it's moral versus immoral, when it's a clear choice which is right versus a clear choice which is wrong. For example, like he said, the person who is some kind of an addict, or a person that is a chain smoker or the like, and he knows that the smoking is having disastrous effects on his health. He knows that. So why is he picking up another cigarette and to making things even worse? The guy's on a diet, he's 56 pounds overweight, he's got cholesterol going out the roof, his blood pressure is high, he's in really bad shape. He knows that he's on a diet, he knows he has to take care of himself. So when it's a choice between the apple and the chocolate cake, and he knows that the chocolate cake is going to leave him in a bad physical state, and the apple is going to be his conditioning to become a better person, so how is he making the right choice? If a person is in a situation where he is confronted with an act of immorality, and he knows when he's seeing it that it's really the wrong thing to do, how is it possible that he ever makes the wrong choice and acts in an immoral way? So we spoke about this idea that as long as the two choices are there, he can weigh it out. But at the point when he's leaning sometimes in the direction of the wrong choice, he has like that momentary lapse of reasoning. He gets blinded at that point, and he ends up pushing off the right choice, and he can end up leading himself in to the wrong place. And then that occupies the space that in his head, that becomes his reality, even though it's really not reality, because the reality is what he's doing right now is hurting himself. Nevertheless, he'll go into that world. And the other side is also true, that when you're confronted between the moral and the immoral choice, even though that your mind is running wild with all of its fantasies and all the things that it could do, but if you buckle down at that point and you make the right decision, as he pointed out, even though that the fantasy might still be whirling around in your brain, nevertheless, you found the wherewithal and the strength to make a decision that is going to take you down a better path in life. That's the power of your free will. Now he tells over the following story. Rabbi Tatz, before he was known as the great Rabbi Tatz, he was a doctor in South Africa. And he's a brilliant person, so you can understand that he was a brilliant doctor, very well respected. And he tells over the following story that he once witnessed with his own eyes. He says that he was once, when he was a doctor, he had a patient who was suffering from something called Berger's disease. Berger's disease, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's due to an exquisite sensitivity to the nicotine in cigarette smoke. And people with this condition end up losing digits like toes and fingers, and they can even lose limbs if they continue to smoke, because the chronic constriction of the blood vessels and the results that come from it. So the smoking itself constricts the blood flowing through the blood vessels, and it makes it to the point where there's not enough blood flowing to certain limbs, fingers and toes and the like, and a person, Rahman al-Islam, will have to have amputations take place. Now he writes over here that there's no recorded cases to speak of in non-smokers. Only people that smoke get this disease called Berger's disease, and only they are the ones that are going to end up, God forbid, losing parts of their body. Now, it's also proven clear in the studies that if the person who has it will stop smoking, so then the process of the disease is slowed down significantly. So it will slow down. They won't have to lose as many fingers, as many toes, limbs, and the like. They can protect themselves. So that's the background for this story over here. So here you have a patient who had Berger's disease, which again is known only to come to people that are chronic smokers, because it's slowing down the flow in the blood vessels. So a patient came to him, and he had a severely compromised blood flow to one of his legs, and they told him that if you continue smoking, we're going to have to amputate your entire leg. Now he says this person was a highly intelligent individual. He was 45 years old. He was an engineer, and he understood as much about this disease as the doctors did, which means that in his bright intellectual mind, and he saw what was happening to his body, and he understood it's because that he smokes. So what does a normal thinking, logical person do in that situation? You realize that smoking is killing me. Smoking is putting me into a situation where there's going to be amputation, not just of fingers or toes, but of an entire limb. So the doctors are telling him, listen, Johnny, you got to stop smoking to save your life. So a person in the right state of mind stops smoking. However, this person didn't do such a thing, even though that he knew what the mistakes of smoking and the consequences were going to be. He continued smoking, and a few weeks later, they had to bring him into the hospital and perform an above-the-knee amputation. They ended up amputating his entire leg. The next time that Rabbi Tat saw him was a year later, and he was being wheeled down in the hospital corridor in a wheelchair with no legs now at this point, still smoking, and they were about to amputate one of his arms. So how do you explain this? The man is clearly witnessing two choices in front of him. It's cigarette smoking and whatever fleeting pleasure there is at that point, or having your limbs cut off and being an invalid in a wheelchair. What do you choose? Now he writes over here in parentheses, this is of course an extreme case, but the truth of the matter is that it's not so uncommon that a person will be confronted with choices similar to this, where one choice is obviously wrong and one choice is obviously right, but they're grappling with their inner world of either addictions or the pleasures or the lust toward a certain thing, and they'll end up making the wrong choice. So the Rav Tat says like this: what is the nature of this process of making the right or the wrong decision? So he says the man begins to think to himself, and he knows really no less than the choice between the man begins to think about the choice, and the choice is a cigarette or my leg. Well, my legs are gone now. So a cigarette or my arm. Well, one arm is gone now. So another cigarette, another pack of Marlboro Reds, or my other arm. That's the choice. Cigarette or limbs getting cut off. That's the choice. Now, but what's he struggling with over here? The struggle is that it's the question in his mind is losing the leg for the benefits of the temporary pleasure that he's going to have while he's smoking the cigarette, the rush of the nicotine, the calm nerves that he has, the pleasure that he has of watching the smoke come out of his nose or blowing rings out of his mouth. What is better? And he says in his mind is going like this: should I smoke? Now the craving is very real, but the cost is far too high. But then again he says to himself, what difference does it make one more cigarette? Just one more. What's one more? But you already blew it so many times. One more was another and another and another and another, and here you are. So he says the pleasure is beckoning now, while the pain is in the indefinite future. Meaning, right now when I smoke this cigarette, I'm getting instantaneous gratification. The doctors warned me they're going to cut off the leg. They warned me if I don't stop, it's going to mean the other leg. All those things are not in front of me right now. Those are in the more distant future. So therefore, I'm trading in the pleasure of right now for what is going to be the unfortunate disaster that's waiting for the person in the future. So it's a crazy thing that a person would think like this. And he says like this, a thin rationalization that even a mature child would see wins the debate, but he's one step closer to disaster. Meaning, what's winning the debate that's going on in the guy's head? Silliness. Meaning, if you'd ask a child, what would you rather have? Pleasure right now or get your leg cut off later, what would a kid say? He'd say, of course, I don't want my leg cut off. I want to be able to run, play basketball, go up and down stairs by myself. I don't want to be in a... Of course. But a person who is grappling in that world between the illusionary pleasures that he's having right now versus the terrible, devastating consequences, he has a hard time making the decision. Again, now that's the gross, extreme example. But what about this? He says every person is on a diet. Same thing. He's caught in the grip of temptation. Meaning it's the cake or the glass of water. It's the bottle, it's the Coca-Cola, which is loaded with 40 grams of sugar and carbohydrates, or a glass of green tea. What am I supposed to take? So whether it be something childishly trivial or lethally dangerous goes through the inner deliberation. I mean, that's what I'm going through every time that I'm on a diet. I'm trying to figure out, should I eat the food? Should I not eat the food? Another serving, not another serving. What's the benefit? What is the detriment? The benefit is right now I'm going to feel good. I'm going to enjoy another helping, another heaping bowl of cholent. The detriment is that after Shabbos I always gain 5 pounds. So who am I kidding over here? Who am I really hurting? So he writes that either sense prevails, and they exit higher and better. So, I'm saying either, meaning either you'll use your sense, your seichel, and that will prevail, and you'll go to a higher and better place of living, which means I'm in control of the food and the pleasure. The food and the pleasure is not in control of me. So after Shabbos is over and I get on the scale and I actually lost a half a pound, or I didn't gain a half a pound, or 1 pound or 5 pounds this week, or I'm on the diet and I know that I've got a goal that I want to get into a smaller pair of pants, and I want to look better for the pictures at the wedding or the bar mitzvah, whatever it might be. So then every time that I deny myself the immediate pleasure of the chocolate bar or the cake or the soda or the ice cream, so I'm in my mind, I'm envisioning the picture of what it's going to look like 6 months down the road when I'm going to be able to stand there and feel very good about myself. That's one way. Or, as he pointed out, there's like this hint of insanity that's being allowed to intervene, and then the person sinks into their own failure of their personal betrayal of what is right over wrong. So this is the quandary that a person of free will is going to find themselves engaged in on a daily basis, when those are the choices between moral and immoral, between the positive consequence and a clearly negative consequence that is there. And if a person doesn't begin to get control over the moment that they're in right now, then they are always going to go into the fleeting pleasures of the moment, and they'll forget about what the consequences will be afterwards. Now keep this in mind as you're going through the parshas that we have in the Torah now about the life of Parai, who was the wicked leader against the Jewish people. He is warned many times by Moshe and by God that he has to let the Jewish people go. That's his choice. Let them go, or else what? Or else I'm going to create plagues in the land of Egypt, which will ravage and destroy the country, the land, the livestock, and eventually the people itself. Now, if you're a man of free will, and Paro was no slouch, he was a bright individual, so if you're a man of free will, and you see your country being destroyed all around you, why are you not giving in? Why are you not stopping yourself and saying, you know what, the consequence of being a stubborn person and not listening to Hashem, it's too great, it's too strong, and I keep making big mistakes over here. But as we will go through the up and coming parshas that we have of Paro, just keep a close eye on him and see where his mistaken free will is, and how he just cannot humble himself before Hashem to be able to do what is right. But this is the same thing that we have to keep in mind, that we all have these inner struggles of turmoil between what is right and what is clearly wrong. And it depends if we're in control of the moment, or the moment is going to be in control of us, and then the fleeting pleasures will end up getting the best of us and will sink into the wrong choice. Or will do what's valiant and courageous, will make the right choice, and then we will be in control of our free will, and the fleeting fancies will not be in control of us. Okay, have a wonderful day. Hopefully the weather holds up, and perhaps we'll actually see each other in person on Wednesday.
Wednesday's good.
Great. Fantastic. Okay, see you then. Thank you, everyone.